I know that you people like to listen to our chilling stories while sleeping on your beds, so do this before you fall asleep. While listening to the story, I will be happy to know from which country you are listening to this story. Please let me know by commenting, and if you are new to our channel, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video. So let's go. Peter's horrifying story. Truck driver's ghostly experience. My name is Peter Adams. I am a truck driver, and I always go on long journeys. I travel in a very large part of the USA, and in this profession, small things happen, and incidents happen every day. But what I felt in 2018 changed my mind forever. It was in 2018 when I was going to Nevada from the highway of California. I was traveling in the headlights of my truck, and it was nighttime. I couldn't see anything nearby, only me and the headlights of my truck, which were illuminating the road. I often travel alone, but that night I was feeling something very strange. It seemed that something was going to happen today, something strange which I had never imagined. Suddenly, I saw something in my side mirror. At first I thought it could be some other truck, but slowly when it went away from my side mirror, then I felt that there could be something else. My heart started pounding. The shadow of that thing went near my truck. My hands got very cold, and I felt as if someone was watching me. I thought, what was this? Is my mind making me dizzy? But when I paid attention to the wheel of the truck, that shadow showed its face in my side mirror. There was something in the eyes of that face which was not normal. Its eyes were very deep, as if it wanted to say something. The hair on my head stood up. I was terrified. I increased the speed of my truck a bit, but he was still walking right next to me. As I increased the speed, he came closer to me. I was saying to myself, all this is just a game of my mind. Maybe I am a little tired, but there was something else, which was beyond my mind. I saw another face in the side mirror which was totally strange. There was fear in the eyes of that face, and there was a terrifying smile on its lips. I thought, this is something else. This cannot be normal. I started calling my friend Rick. Rick often traveled with me, and I wanted to talk to him and get rid of my fear. I picked up the phone and said, Rick, I am feeling something strange. Do you think I am thinking the wrong thing? Rick was a little worried, but he said, Peter, are you okay? Your voice sounds a little scary. I was not able to control myself. Even after talking to Rick, that shadow's face was visible in my side mirror. Every time I increased the speed of the truck, that face came closer. I listened to my mind and thought it was all just a game of my mind. But as I looked at the road, I realized that there was something else watching me. I heard the sound of a bell, a slow fizzling sound that was louder than the engine of my truck. I slowed the truck a bit and looked again. The shadow was right next to my truck. My heart was pounding very fast. The shadow put its hand near the window of the truck, and a cool breeze started to blow. The fear inside me increased further, and then that face came right past me in my side mirror. I slowly stopped my truck on the side of the road and picked up my cell phone. Instead of calling Rick, I called my wife Sarah. Sarah, something strange is happening. I am not able to understand all this. Sarah hid for a while and said, Peter, don't be afraid. I will come to see you soon. But I knew. This night's secret was something else. Part 4. The Shadow's True Form. As I stopped, he suddenly came near my truck. As I sharpened my headlights, that shadow was watching me while hiding. Then a strange sound, the sound of a whispering shadow, started to be heard. I looked. That shadow was in front of my truck. Then I thought, this is something else. This is not a human being. This could be a ghost or something else. You must be wondering what I was doing. I was moving my truck slowly, but the face of that shadow was very close. I gripped my trembling hands tighter on the steering wheel and tried to grasp the fear inside that was escaping my body. It was nighttime, and I was taking my truck on an overnight trip. The highway was completely empty. It was just me and my truck. The darkness of the night had spread everywhere, and I could completely feel the cold night breeze. As I was moving forward, I was feeling a strange pressure in my chest, as if someone was watching me. I could feel my heart beating faster. My heart was pounding, but I tried to control myself. I was thinking that maybe this is happening because of excessive stress. But then another strange feeling came. My mind was telling me that something is wrong. Suddenly, I saw something in the corner of my eyes. At first I thought maybe someone was passing by my truck, but when I looked more carefully there was nothing. Then I looked in my side mirror. Something like a shadow was visible. It was so fast that I could not understand anything. I picked up the phone with my hand and called Rick. Rick was my old friend, who often traveled with me. But this time he was not with me. When Rick picked up the phone, there was a deep trembling in his voice. "Hey Pete." "What happened?" Rick asked. I thought for a while, and then replied, "Rick, something strange is happening, friend. I feel like something is near me. I am seeing something, which I don't understand. I saw some shadow in the side mirror." Rick hid a little, as if he had felt something. "Pete, there's something weird about your voice. Are you all right?" I was talking to him, but I felt like nothing was making sense after hearing him. My heart was pounding and I was wondering what was going on. Rick said, "Slow down. If something is going on, I'll let you know. You just take care of yourself." I listened to him, but the peace of the night was different. Just as I was paying more attention, I was also feeling something else. Then suddenly I saw a deep darkness in front of my truck's headlights. That darkness was not just an ordinary darkness, but there was something in it which was very strange. I saw a shadow in front of my eyes. Whether it was a human face or something else, I could not understand. There was a secret in his eyes which I could not understand. That shadow was looking at me from my side mirror. Then that face made its face even clearer, as if it was saying something to me, but I could not hear its voice. My heart stopped, and I felt that I had to do something at this moment. I started to speed up my truck, and there was only one thought in my heart. If I stopped, then something bad might happen. I started to drive my truck fast. My hands became very wet, and I was thinking every moment what was happening. Is this really a ghost? Or is it something lost in my mind? I called Rick again. "Rick, I can't be wrong. There is something that is staring at me. That face, that shadow came close to me." Rick answered me secretly. "Pete, drive slowly. Nothing will happen to you. You just keep yourself together and keep telling me." I increased the speed of the truck, but what I was feeling was just increasing. With every step, that shadow was coming close to me. Then once again, I looked in my side mirror. It was dark anyway. I slowly controlled the beating of my heart and looked around me with my eyes. That shadow, that face, everything had become so clear, as if it was pulling me towards itself. I felt that it was nothing else but a ghost, which was watching me, and now it was trying to catch me. I could not believe my eyes now. Every time I was accelerating my truck, that face was coming in front of me. Just like a dark night, that shadow was passing in front of me. I was really not able to understand what was happening. Was all this a game of my mind? Did I see all this because of excessive fatigue? My heart started beating fast, and I picked up the phone with my trembling hands. My mind was filled with thoughts, and I needed to talk to someone. As soon as the phone rang, her voice brought some peace to my mind. "Peter, what happened? Are you absolutely fine?" Sarah's voice brought some relief to me. I replied with fear. "Sarah, something strange is happening. This night has become the most terrifying night for me.
You don't know, but this shadow in front of me does not seem to be that of a normal human being. I feel that I am just lying to myself, but what I am feeling is the truth. You are not understanding me, Sarah said with some fear. Peter, nothing will happen to you. You just take care of yourself. You are with me, and I am with you. You just complete your journey. I was listening to his talk, but the person who was seen in front of me was there all the time, and every time I was looking at him in my side mirrors, he was coming closer and closer. As soon as I thought of applying brakes, everything went cold. Absolutely cold, as if the wind had stopped, and I was feeling all this as if some weird person was walking, and then he saw that face was standing right in front of my truck. I stopped, completely frozen. That face was looking at me, without making any sound, just staring at me with its eyes. Every moment I was thinking, what should I do? Should I leave this truck, or will something else happen if I stop? Then that face moved both its hands with its identity, as if giving some signal. There was a deep secret in its eyes. It was saying something, but I could not understand. It moved its face slowly and went away from my truck. As soon as he left, I felt a little relaxed, but there was still fear in my mind. My mind was saying that I had not been able to hear that bell. Was that face real? Did he show his full strength in front of me? I held the wheel with my hand and started driving the truck again, but now my heart was beating a little less. This night became the scariest night for me, and I still had not understood what that shadow was of. As I started driving the truck,
Slowly I felt that something else was going to happen. The reason for that face, those eyes, was still in front of me. I closed my eyes and tried to calm my mind. There was only one thing in my mind. Was it just my mind? Or was there really something like that around me? I was still not able to understand whether whatever was happening was really happening, or it was my mind trying to make it look like that. That day and night journey, when I saw that face in the headlights of my truck, became something that could never be forgotten. That same face, that shadow, and everything that I had felt. Everything was ringing in my mind like a bell. After that night, nothing was like before. When I returned to the cabin of my truck, I felt that something else was with me. A strange coldness entered my body like a bell. Every object, every sound, I felt as if someone was watching me. All the time I felt that someone was with me, no matter where I was going. And then, when I sat in my room, a strange thought was going on inside me. Did I really see something? Or was it my mind that was troubling me? That thought kept haunting me the whole night. The face that was in front of me started appearing in my dreams. I used to think, was he a ghost? Did he show his full strength in front of me? And was all this his game? I often used to wonder while driving in my truck at night, what was all this? Was it something else? Was he really a ghost? Every time I drive the truck at night, I remember that face, and I still feel the cold wind that was around me, as if something was moving around me. I was sitting in a corner of my room and thinking about my story, remembering that incident. I was reliving that moment when he was standing in front of me. There was a fear in my mind, and I knew that that fear was never going to hide. Every night, I felt as if someone was talking to me, but no one could see. As if I was talking to myself, or someone was hiding inside me and saying something to me. There was fear in my eyes, and a gloom on my face. Was all this my imagination, or was this really happening? My mind wanted to never see that face, but I realized that all this would remain with me until I faced that face. This became a lifelong story for me, and I felt like this story would never end. I felt like there was something around me that could happen to me at any time. I was talking to my wife, Sarah, one day. She said to me, "Peter, something happened to you, right?" The wrinkle on your face was something else. There was a hidden worry on Sarah's face too, and I could sense that she was feeling something too. But I told her, Sarah, I don't know, but whatever is happening is absolutely true. My mind is not thinking all this. That sound, that face, it's all true. Have you ever felt like this? Sarah said quietly, Peter, sometimes we feel such things which we don't understand. But I am with you. You have to keep your mind calm. But I could not calm down. I felt that someone was with me and I could never hide from him. My mind always thought that the ghost or something else that was with me was never going to leave me. And as I started my journey in my truck, I felt as if it was walking with me. My mind wanted everything to be fine. But the truth was something else. Even today, when I drive the truck at night, the same incident happens with me. I still feel something around me, as if someone is watching me, or someone is walking near me. That face, it was never going to leave me. Whenever I drive on some lonely highway, I remember that face, and I think of facing that face from inside my truck. Then one night, when I was driving my truck, I felt that now I will face that face. My mind was filled with restlessness, but I felt that this is the very moment where I can face my fear. I was searching for that face the whole way, wanted to see it with my eyes. And then, a little further away, I saw that same face. But this time, I thought, I can never keep you away from me. And after that, something strange happened. He passed in front of me, but this time I understood that it wasn't my mind. It was real. It was something else. As I start my truck and recall those old memories, I feel that the shadow of that old incident is still in my heart. Both my mind and brain start feeling a little dizzy, because as I speed up my car, I feel as if someone is watching me, or there is someone around me who is secretly following me. And then, as I immerse myself in my childhood memories, one more thing comes before my eyes. I remember when I used to live in my old house, one night something strange happened near our house. The area around the house was always silent. There was no sound, neither the noise of any friends, nor the sound of anyone walking. But one night when I and my sister Ellie were sleeping in our room, there was a strange peace. We both felt as if something wrong was happening. Then a sound came, something I had never heard before. A terrifying sound that came from outside our room. The sound was as if someone was softly saying something special, like a strange bell that was being heard secretly. My mind was thinking that it could be someone in our house or something else, but my mind was quite troubled. I felt that the sound was really something else, a kind of warning, as if something was about to happen. I was telling my sister many times, Ellie, are you hearing that sound? I feel something is wrong, she told me in fear. Peter, don't say such strange things. It could be a gust of wind. But that gust of wind had never seemed so cold and strange to me before. That night, we both thought of going out of our rooms for some time, and when both of us opened the door of our room, there was darkness and an old wind which was slightly touching our faces. Then I felt that there was something else. No one was visible, but there was someone who was near us. In that darkness, a face appeared which we had never imagined. This face was just like a shadow, a ghostly face, which was standing in front of us for some time. There was something in the eyes of that face that I could not understand. Their eyes had a depth, a mystery that made me feel cold inside. I was very scared, and after that night, I never hid that fear. Every time I travel in my truck, I remember that face. That face is still with me, as if someone is talking to me, and I can never forget it. After that day, I thought that all these were just ghostly fantasies of my mind. But when I started driving the truck and faced that same face again one night, I felt that all this was true. I tried to explain to you that it was just my thought, but when I saw something in the headlights of my truck, that same face, those same eyes, that same presence which I used to feel with me, everything was in front of me. Somewhere my mind was thinking that this is something else. This is something which I can never understand. And then, that face which was watching me from a distance came near me. I increased the speed of my truck, but wherever I went, that face was with me. Sometimes it felt that face was near me, in front of my truck's headlights, and sometimes it seemed that it was walking with me from a distance. I lowered my eyes many times, but still I could see that face. One day, when I saw that face while driving the truck, there was a strange coolness in my eyes. My heart stopped, because I felt that this was the same face that had been secretly walking with me since my childhood. Facing that fear, my old memories, my old incidents came back to me, and now I understood that all this was with me, which was never going to go away. I tried to convince my mind that it was all an illusion, but when I was calling my wife Sarah, she said, "Peter, you should never be afraid of anything. What you have seen may not be true." But Sarah's words could not give any peace to my heart. After that night, when I think, it seems that that face, that shadow, could be with me anytime. Story 2. Haunted Highway, a truck driver's horrifying tale. My name is John, and I've been driving a truck on the roads of America for the past 15 years. I've spent many nights alone on the highway, seen many strange things, but what I felt that night, I can never forget it. Night journey and endless fear. The cold wind lingered on the windows, and the light of the truck's headlights was trying in vain to pierce the darkness ahead. Both sides of the road were surrounded by dense forests, which felt the shadow of some unseen force. I was alone on this deserted highway, or maybe it only seemed so to me. Apart from the rumble of the truck's engine and the sound of tires scraping against the road, there was an eerie silence all around. The radio was off. I had turned it off myself because the slow, mysterious static was creating strange vibrations in my ears. It seemed as if someone was mumbling something in a hushed voice, but whenever I tried to listen carefully, the sounds gradually faded away. I felt a little tired, my eyelids were getting heavy, and I was thinking of stopping at a truck stop and getting a cup of coffee, when I saw something on the side of the road. White shadow. She was standing there, dressed in white, her face covered with disheveled hair, head slightly bowed. Her posture was unusual. She was standing as if some invisible force had pinned her there. Despite the cold wind, her clothes and hair were strangely still, as if an invisible wall was blocking them. A cold wave ran down my spine. A girl alone on this deserted road, so late at night. Something was wrong. I slowed down the truck, but a strange fear was preventing me from moving forward. My hand involuntarily went to the horn. Pon. The truck's horn echoed on the deserted highway, but the girl did not react. She did not flinch, nor did she raise her head. She stood there, lifeless. There was something in the air. As I approached her, the truck's headlights illuminated her figure completely. Her body was unnaturally thin. Her skin was so white that it seemed as if she was not human, but made of a cold, white mist. Her feet were a few inches above the ground. Yes, she was not standing on the ground, but floating in the air. My throat went dry. The truck suddenly became unstable. The steering began to slip from my hands, as if someone had grabbed it. I held it with all my strength, but then the girl raised her head. Black eyes, without pupils. Her face was as sharp as bones, and her eyes, oh, her eyes. They were completely black. No pupils, no whiteness, just deep, endless darkness, as if looking into a deep abyss where no light could reach. She smiled, but the smile was not human. Her lips grew unnaturally long, slowly stretching to her cheeks. Her teeth were snow white, pointed, sharp, and so shiny that they reflected the light of the headlights. My blood froze. Stopped truck, but someone was still sitting. I quickly shifted gears and pressed down on the accelerator with all my might. The roar of the engine echoed across the highway and the truck moved forward at full speed. But I felt someone in my cabin. I could feel a spray of cold breath on the back of my neck. Someone's long hair was swinging from behind my seat. And then I looked at the mirror. She was behind me now, inside the truck. My hand started shaking. The road started to blur. The steering of the truck was turning, but I hadn't even touched it. And then, a slow, whispering voice echoed in my ears. "You can't escape." Strange smile, an endless horror night. The night was getting darker. There was no movement on the road. Only a patch of road was lit up by the headlights of my truck. There was no sound except the rumbling of the engine. But then, I saw her. Shadows, standing on the side of the road. On one side of the deserted highway, in the midst of dense darkness, stood a girl, draped in white clothes, her hair hanging over her face. Her posture was strange, as if she wanted to go somewhere from here, but there was no movement in her legs. I slowed down the truck, and as I came closer to her, my heart began to beat faster. There was something in her, something unnatural, something that was giving a strange warning to my mind that I should ignore her. But I stopped. I rolled down the window. A gust of cold air came in and a strange shiver ran through my body. Those black eyes. "Where do you want to go?" My voice faltered a little. The girl slowly raised her head. Her face. That face looked completely normal. But her eyes. There was something deep in them that was not human. Those eyes were black, but not just in color. They seemed to contain an endless darkness, as if they came from another world. I tried to look at her, but the next moment I felt something inside me. A pull, a compulsion to not look away. I started feeling lightheaded, as if I was falling into a deep well. "Just a little further," she said. Her voice was slow and deep at the same time, as if many voices were speaking at once. I shook my head and looked away. An unknown fear. My fingers tightened on the steering. I opened the door of the truck, avoiding looking at her face again. She took a step forward, and her gait was strange, light, but as if floating in the air. She sat inside. Sudden coldness. As soon as she entered the cabin of the truck, a strange coldness spread throughout the atmosphere. Wrinkles ran across my skin. I quickly turned on the heater, but instead of reducing the cold, it increased. My breath was coming out in light steam, as if I was in a snowy place. But the temperature outside was normal. Something wasn't right. I peered into the mirror to see her, but her reflection wasn't there. Silence that screamed. I cleared my throat and mustered up the courage to ask, "Where are you coming from?" No answer. I felt weird. I turned my head and looked at her. She was sitting upright. Her eyes were straight ahead, but there was no expression on her face. Then, her smile began to spread. Slowly, at first light, then wide. So wide that the muscles in her cheeks began to stretch. A strange fear settled in my stomach. "Are you okay?" I asked again, but this time my voice was trembling. She didn't even move. Her smile just grew wider. She was saying something, but how? Suddenly, a strange sound echoed through the truck. Someone was whispering. I looked around, but it was just me and her in the truck. Then I realized it was her voice. but her lips weren't moving. "You can't escape." My heart clenched. "What?" I asked, nervous. She was still smiling. "You can't escape." The sound got louder, as if several voices were echoing at once. The windows in the truck shook slightly. My head started spinning. I pressed the clutch and accelerated the truck forward. Was there someone in the back seat? I peered into the back mirror of the truck, and there, a pair of more eyes were staring at me. Those black eyes. The missing girl, a terrifying journey. There was a strange silence in the truck cabin. There was no sound except the soft rumble of the engine. I was constantly looking at the road, but my mind was repeatedly drawn towards the stranger girl who was sitting with me just a few minutes ago. She was sitting absolutely quiet, so quiet that it seemed as if she was not a human being, but a statue. Her white dress was shining mysteriously in the dark. Trying to hide my nervousness, I asked softly, "Where are you going?" There was no response for a few seconds. Only a gust of cold air blew into the cabin, which made the hairs on my neck stand up. I looked at her out of the corner of my eyes. She was still sitting the same way, but now it seemed that she was slowly turning towards me. Then suddenly she raised her head. Her eyes, those eyes, which were absolutely black, deep, dark, as if there was no end to them. It seemed that if I looked inside them, I would be lost in some unknown dark world. My heart started beating fast. Then his lips moved. He said in a slow but terrifying voice, "Where are you going?" His voice. No, it was not an ordinary voice. It was like an echo coming from a deep cave, as if many voices were whispering together. A wave of cold ran through my whole body. Suddenly the temperature in the truck cabin started dropping. My breathing became heavy and fingers started freezing on the steering. I looked ahead nervously. The road was still wrapped in darkness, but now there was something different about it. The highway that was going straight earlier now seemed to be twisting, as if I was stuck in an unknown road. I looked in the mirror, in shock. But there was nothing there. My blood froze. That girl had disappeared. I immediately looked at the seat next to me. It was completely empty. But how is this possible? She was there just a few seconds ago. I had seen her with my own eyes. A heavy silence descended inside the truck. Even the soft sound of the engine was now frightening. My hands were drenched in cold sweat, and my heart was beating so fast that it felt like it would burst out of my chest. Just then, the truck suddenly faltered. The steering almost slipped out of my hands. The truck started shaking badly, as if some invisible force was pushing it. I tried to hold the steering with all my strength, but my hands were getting numb. I quickly moved my foot towards the brake, but the brake stopped working. No. I tried to brake with all my might, but the truck kept going at its own pace. The road was still dark, but strange figures could now be seen on either side. They looked like humans, but they had no faces. Just blurry black shadows, staring at me from the windows of the truck. I turned my head quickly and looked at the seat again. The girl was sitting there again. But she was not the same as before. Her head was bent, but her hair was floating in the air, as if she was underwater. Her hands were no longer white, but looked burnt, and her fingers were long and crooked, like those of some scary creature. Then she slowly raised her head. Her eyes were now completely white. Her pupils were missing, and her skin looked completely rotten. Her lips moved slightly, and she whispered, "You can't escape." Just then, the truck's horn started blowing by itself. A loud, terrifying sound echoed throughout the cabin. I screamed and tried to jerk the truck to a stop. And then, everything went quiet. The truck had stopped. The highway looked the same again, as if nothing had happened. I was shivering badly, leaning back on the seat, breathing heavily. Slowly I turned my neck and looked towards the co-passenger seat. That seat was empty. Blood-stained letter, an endless terror. Breathing was like a bellows. The heart felt like it wanted to break through the ribs and come out. My hands were fixed on the steering, but my eyes were fixed on the co-passenger seat, where a crumpled paper lay. I don't know why, but I felt as if that paper was staring at me. There was a strange coolness in the room, but my palms were wet with sweat. Mustering courage, I picked up that paper with trembling hands. As soon as my fingers touched that paper, a cold wave ran down my spine. The paper was wet, but for some reason that wetness felt scarier than anything else. I slowly opened it. Something was written in red. No, it wasn't just red ink. It was blood, fresh, sticky, and somehow alive. Stretches of letters were dripping down, as if someone had just written it. You can't escape. My breath stopped. An awkward silence had descended inside the truck. Nothing could be heard except the soft rumble of the engine. I wanted to throw away this paper, but my hands had gone numb. And then someone called my name from behind. John ... The voice was soft. So soft that it might have sounded like the wind blowing, but it wasn't the wind. It was coming from right behind me. My neck tingled. I didn't want to turn, but as if some invisible force was forcing me, my head started to turn slowly backwards on its own. There was only darkness behind, but a pair of eyes were shining in the darkness. Deep black, void-like eyes. And then I felt it, the touch of someone's cold, wet hand on my shoulder. Trying to escape. My scream got stuck in my throat. I bent forward with lightning speed and started the truck. The roar of the engine echoed through the cabin, but the only thing I could hear was someone's breathing in the back, which was gradually getting louder. I stepped on the accelerator without looking. The truck roared forward, and I looked in the mirror. She was still there, in white clothes, with disheveled hair, but now her face was clearly visible. And what I saw was the most terrifying moment of my life. Her face was not human, her skin was rotten, lips were missing, and her black pit-like eyes were piercing my soul. And then she smiled. You can't escape. The same words, but this time they weren't on paper. They were echoing in the air. I drove the truck all night. No sense of food, no sense of water. I just had to keep running. Looking back was also equal to death. The truth came out. In the morning, when I reached a truck stop, I was in a bad condition. Eyes red, sweat on the face, and mind numb. There, an old man was looking at me. There was a strange understanding in his eyes, as if he knew what happened to me. He slowly came to me and asked, "Did you see her too?" My heart stopped beating. "Who?" I asked, stammering. He took a deep breath and said, "The same girl who travels with some truck driver on this highway every year on this night. Years ago, someone killed her and threw her here. Since then, she is seen by passers-by, and then disappears." But she had not disappeared. I still felt that someone was sitting behind my seat, and when I looked in the mirror, she was smiling again. Endless journey, an endless feeling filled with fear and suspense. After that day, I swore I would never go down that road, but some things, some feelings, it is impossible to escape them. I may have moved away from that highway, but that scary night, that girl standing in white clothes, those cold breaths, all of them left a deep impression on my mind. The first time I felt it again, Several months had passed. I was on another trip, this time in a different state, on a completely new route. I thought I had left that scary experience behind, but some things don't leave so easily. That night, I was driving the truck alone on a deserted road. It was pitch dark, and there wasn't a single vehicle on the road for miles. There were dense trees on both sides of the road, casting shadows that looked scary in the light of the headlights. As I looked in the rearview mirror, my breath stopped. In the back seat, I saw a faint white shadow. Was it my hallucination? I quickly turned my head and looked behind. There was nothing. Inside the truck, only the soft rumble of the engine and the rapid beating of my own heart echoed. It's just my imagination, I told myself. But then a strange chill began to spread through the cabin. The heater was on, but I still felt cold, just like I had that night. I turned on the radio to distract myself, but all that came out was white noise, static noise. And then, that voice. Amid the white noise of the radio, a soft whisper was heard. "You can't escape." I turned the radio off in panic. Shadow in the mirror again. I mustered up the courage to look in the rearview mirror once again, and this time, there she was, in white clothes. Her black hair was disheveled, her eyes deep, vacant, and filled with darkness. But this time she wasn't just a shadow. She was smiling softly. I couldn't move. My hands were frozen on the steering, but there was no movement in my body. My breathing had stopped. Just then, the truck suddenly started to jerk violently, as if someone was stopping it forcefully. And then, her hand. Someone placed a light hand on my shoulder, cold as ice. I gathered courage and slowly looked to the side. She was now sitting right next to me. The terror of silence. She was not saying anything. She was just staring. There was darkness inside her eyes, like a deep abyss, from which I could not get out. A faint echo was heard in my ears. "You cannot escape." I tried to scream, but my voice got stuck in my throat. And then, everything went back to normal. Or maybe, suddenly all the movement in the truck stopped. The coldness disappeared. There was no sound coming from the radio either. Frightened, I looked at the seat next to me. She was gone. I breathed a sigh of relief. But as I looked at the road, she was standing right in the middle of the road. In white clothes, her hair was blowing in the wind. And this time, her smile was even deeper. This endless journey will never end. If you ever travel alone on the highway at night and see a girl, do not give her a lift, because she might still be on her journey.